Thousands of Nigerian villagers. They say their livelihoods were ruined by two massive oil spills in the Niger Delta. In Ghana, oil companies are now being blamed for the deaths of several whales off the coast. Our Risers contributor Frankie Ndozian is here with us. And Frankie, there seems to be a growing trend in Africa now where oil companies are being put up against the gun, as it were, when it comes to oil spills over there. Explain what's going on over there.
Well, what's going on is that African activists, environmental activists, are taking matters into their own hands and going into where these oil companies actually believe that they can. They're going into places into arenas where the oil companies have not seen activists go to from Africa. Usually in the past, African activists would just scream and shout and yell, but now they're going to court in European capitals, in New York. And so what we see in the Niger Delta is that Shell, for instance, which has been in Nigeria for over 50 years pumping oil, and there have been many, many oil spills, does not readily come to the table. In fact, 5 years ago when this oil spill happened, Shell kept on saying it was a very, very minor spill. There's not much that happened. These activists are blowing things out of proportion. But if you go to the Niger Delta, all you see are rusty oil pipes, and you've seen that this Bodo, which is this fishing village that was there, is completely, once a prosperous town, is not the same anymore. What they did was that they went to court in the UK. They got British lawyers, and Shell has now said, oh, these guys are serious, we need to come to the table. They're still denying that it's 500,000 barrels of oil that was spilled. They're still saying it's 4,000. But now they're speaking differently. They're saying, okay, we'll come to the table, we'll talk, we'll pay some money. We don't want to pay.
But here's the issue. They're talking about some money.
Sure.
$20 million as opposed to $200 million that some villagers are asking. And this can drag out forever in court. Money aside, though, the scope and nature of these oil spills, plural,
yes.
How do they compare, to what people say in this country know full and well, the BP oil spill? Is there any comparison at all?
So this is a very interesting conversation I always have with people when I'm trying to make comparisons. I say, what happened here in the United States a few years ago is minuscule compared to what's going on in the West African coast and the Niger Delta. The barrels and barrels of oil that have been spilled over there has not been any bit of noise. And so what the Nigerian activists have learned is that if you look at the American experience and all the outrage that was there, primarily it was media. Primarily it was also threatening to take legal action. So instead of screaming in our backyard where no one hears, they went to Europe.
Okay, look, money is obviously involved here.
Sure.
But we're talking about environmental pollution and outrage over there.
Yeah.
We're talking about more than 11,000 people than some reports have suggested here. And you're looking at this whole situation and investigating it. What are the people faced with environmentally?
Well, first of all, much of these communities outside of the oil that is, extracted from there are all fishing communities. So if all their fish are dying, that means that there is nothing for them to sell. There's nothing for them to eat. There has also been talk about mercury poisoning. There's also talk about people having diseases that just seem to crop up in clusters, cancer clusters and things like that. So there's also an issue with basic infrastructure. If the water is dirty and there's no filtration programs, if there's no electricity, these people are mired in poverty. And if their only livelihood is selling fish, then you've taken that away from them. So basically you have a recipe for disaster. This has been going on for quite some time. And unfortunately, with all the lessons that we've had of 50 years of oil extraction in Nigeria, Ghana is now going through something similar, where we see that only 5 years ago, Ghana has been known for generations as the Gold Coast. Now they have the black gold because now they have crude oil. 5 years ago, they started drilling off the Ghanaian coast, and now their wells are dying. Can you imagine in 1 week, 16 beached wells? This does not happen anywhere.
Does the government really care about this, though? Because what you see in a lot of emerging countries, I'm not saying that Ghana is an emerging country. We've seen...
They've arrived.
Yeah, and of course. We've seen, mercury used in the extraction of gold over there.
Yes.
But my point is, okay, so you have these fishermen. People make a livelihood on that. Has there been any transition, say, from a fishing industry to more of an oil or a technical industry so people can get jobs in a different way?
Okay, so I'll tell you exactly what's happening in this particular area where I know a little bit. There is one particular town, a village actually called Krokrobite. Krokrobite is where there were several of these beach wells that showed up in the villages. It is a fishing village, but Krokrobite on its own has been sort of like trying hard to market itself as a tourism spot. There are a lot of hotels on that strip. The beach is pretty pristine. Lots of people who go to Accra after spending a few weeks there, they'll take a weekend to go to Kokrobite just to lay on the beach. Much of that Ghanaian coast is like that. Oil brings in a lot of revenue for the government. So tourism is now a little bit less on its priority list, unfortunately, because they are thinking oil revenues are paying for bigger jobs, bigger development, and it's a little bit more immediate. Tourism needs a lot of work. It needs a lot of harnessing. It needs generations really to turn a place into a place that people want to come to and spend money. As a result of that, those areas that have already tried to set up these luxury beach hotels and medium-sized beach hotels, if people aren't coming because they think they're going to see dead fish and dead whales on the beach, there is no jobs for those people.
No
and
jobs.
then the fishermen who are fishing anyway, if they think their fish is going to be, it's not something they can sell. Because one of the things that people do in this beach community is that they go out for the day, they lay on the beach, and people come and sell them fried fish, which is a local delicacy.
Right.
If that cannot happen because they think the fish is polluted, that means no jobs for anyone. The government is not looking at that right now. They're saying oil revenues bring in a lot of taxes, and right now Tula Oil is the big boy over there, and so they want to keep them happy.
Okay, a lot more to talk about this.
Sure.
If no one else is focusing on this, Arise News will be focusing on this.
Yes.
Frankie Doty, it's good to see you here.
Julian, lovely to be with you.
Okay.
Happy Sunday.
You got it. You're
All
watching Arise Review. Stay with us.